illegal way of influencing. It's in fact illegal to influence their contributions. The employees of Google.
Does it show you need more diversity?
I would argue it does.
What can we do?
Well, we work for Google for one thing. And we are. Thank you very much. We are hiring. All I can tell you, I don't know because I'm not legally allowed to ask this question, but I can offer you my guess. Okay. Employees at Google are generally right out of college. They tend to be in New York and California, and they're very socially liberal. My guess is that that's not a sweet spot for most of you in the room.
Actually, in the conservative blogosphere is overwhelmingly libertarian.
Oh, it is. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that correction. So maybe the blogosphere, but if you ultimately, my guess is that the Google employee, this is a guess, is socially liberal, fiscally conservative. Now, if that's libertarian, okay, maybe not. I'm not making it up. I'm not passing any judgment whatsoever. Then there may be more alignment than what you think. But if you think about it, California in particular is incredibly progressive with respect to an awful lot of things that traditional conservative social policy would be opposed to. And my guess is that that drives a lot of this behavior.
Although Silicon Valley is actually fairly conservative.
Not socially.
I live there.
But not socially. Every company has very, very progressive gay rights positions, that kind of stuff. Not socially. Conservative, financially, absolutely. You're absolutely right. But again, one of the problems I see is that the traditional labels, and maybe you guys, this is my own opinion now, maybe you guys agree or disagree, is that the traditional labels of Republican and Democrat don't work as well with this new cohort of people.
Well, just to follow up on what Matt asked, how do you respond to the criticism in the conservative blogosphere that Google tends to favor more left-leaning publications and left-leaning articles?
Give me some
in
data.
Search.
Yeah, give me some data. I mean, the search arguments about search are always interesting because whenever I get them, I always check, and the answer turns out to be that our search algorithms, which are not perfect, tend to bias in favor of popularity. So if you have just this sort of large, overwhelming agreement that the world is flat, Google might conclude that the world is flat when in fact it's just the title of a book. So there are errors in what Google does, but I can assure you, having done lots and lots of code reviews, that there's no human bias. There may be algorithmic bias, but certainly not intended. And again, that may be this earlier gentleman's comment about scale. I think part of getting you guys going is to get more of you, more voices. The solution to speech problems is more speech, not no speech. Adam? Yes, sir.
As a blogger, I've actually not followed the net neutrality debate as close as many people probably. Could you tell us why having government just stay out of this part of the industry and this part of the sector, why that you all see that as problematic?
Let's imagine the following scenario. Who is the largest internet provider in the United States today, numerically? In North America?
Probably Comcast.
So let's pick Comcast. We'll pick whoever is the largest. And let's imagine that they were 80% of the market. They would be able to start to do proprietary extensions of protocols, right? And that could eventually use withholding of information to create a protected substructure within the internet, right? Now, you have to decide if you think that's an okay outcome. The internet was based on the principle that that could not happen. You all know, and this may also be controversial with this group, I've spent 25 years competing with Microsoft, which has, of course, a very large platform market share, who did those kinds of techniques. We can debate whether they were correct or not, but where you come out on that often, I think, predicts your view on it. So the issue is not, there's no current behavior. So Comcast, for example, is not doing the scenario I'm describing. But you worry that when any company, including Google, by the way, gets that level of control over something, they can do proprietary extensions. They can make it impossible for competition to occur. So for example, with Chrome, which we announced yesterday, well, actually we announced on Monday in a comic book, which is a separate discussion, the source code is free. Right? It's very hard to argue against that kind of a strategy. You like it, you don't, you change it, do whatever you want to do.
But aren't there actually existing statutes under fair trade laws and whatnot that regulate such things without net neutrality?
Well, in fact, that's one of the one of the arguments that we're making is that the combination of FCC and FTC history and so forth causes net neutrality to be the correct regulatory aspect. Again, I would encourage you all to think not in terms of the specific, because I'm not wild about. Let me state it a different way. My follow-up to your question to me would be, well, what about? Okay, I agree, but what about the unintended effects of regulation? Well, I completely agree with you. Because you start down this path, and then the government starts doing really wacky stuff, and they really screw it up. Okay, so the question is, how do you find that line? So even if you don't like my mechanism, you know, the sort of discussion that we're having, understand the outcome and why it's important. Because if it ultimately were used against you, you would be really upset. And the way it could be is in ways that could be really bad. And come up with some mechanism if you don't like ours.
Come up with an example of it happening in the free world.
Excuse me?
Come up with an example of it happening in the free world. The only example that we've been given is China, which is not analogous to the U.S. economic or political situations. In the U.S., by definition, if Comcast created a protected substructure within the internet, that's not anti-competitive because it is entirely within the Comcast market, which people are completely free to opt out of. So, what I think now, if Google is truly basing this massive policy effort on a complete hypothetical, ginned by fears of what's happening in communist China.
Which is not what we said.
Well, no, it is what you cited earlier, though.
No, again, let me speak.
I asked about it.
You did ask about it. That's entirely correct. He said this is one of the reasons for the policy.
No, not true.
Okay, well, either way.
May I answer your statements? Okay.
What's the real example?
The answer is we're trying to avoid one. So going back, first place, this has nothing to do with communist China or capitalist China or whatever your view of China is. Okay, this has nothing to do with that. Net neutrality is a principle that we feel strongly about based on the origins of the internet.
You want to impose a regulatory structure for a problem that doesn't exist.
Josh, we're about to have to wrap this up.
Okay.
One last question.
Might exist. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm a Chicago blogger, and I frequently blog about Barack Obama, needless to say. And I was blocked as among many of the Blogspot bloggers by Google for 2 or 3 days at the height of, there was a no Obama group, which I was not at all part of, which was also blocked. So what steps are you taking? And there was like, I was blocked, and then I was informed. And luckily I kind of signed off for the weekend, but I find that very arrogant to block me without verifying first that I was like a real person, not some kind of, spam thing. I mean, I'm not a technical person.
Sure.
But I found that the wrong way to approach it. And I was very upset and offended. And so what steps are you taking to address that you are not blocking your own bloggers through some malicious campaign by, left-wing bloggers, I assume, to silence the voices of conservative bloggers. And when it was restored, I did not get an email or anything. I just found it was back up.
I've asked for a review of what happened there because it was a short interruption to look at the spam problem, but it created all of these other issues, and I think it was either a mistake or we should have done it differently or something. So I don't understand enough of the details to
It was 3 days.
Again,
If that had been during the week,
I
it
see.
happened a Thursday night. That was really, in the blog world, as you know,
I know.
that was very
I think the correct thing for me at this point on that specific issue is to simply apologize and say it was not intentional in the ways that people have speculated, and we'll make sure that if we have to do stuff like that, we do it in a better way. The specific issues have to do with hijacking of sites and spamming and so forth and so on. It has nothing to do. We want more voices, and if we screwed up, we screwed up.
Do you think that was possible because of the malicious user flagging? I've noticed that left-wing people seem to flag conservative views on YouTube, especially as offensive or
It's perfectly possible that people tried to silence you all, and that's not okay, right? And if we can't detect it, we need to be able to detect it. That's a bug. Right? And by the way, it's also symmetrically true that the opposite direction needs to be true as well.
Thank you very much for your
Thanks,
time.
Eric.
We have also joined